Hello, everyone. Good evening once again. Welcome back
Hi, good
to
evening.
live session of Mentorcard. And today's topic is very interesting: leading through emotional intelligence. I welcome and introduce you our guest today, Mr. JP Singh. He's an
Thank you,
ex
Ashish.
Hello. He's an experienced corporate professional, ex MD of Bosch and Lomb, South Asia. He has worked with India Today organizations like Lakme. He has been president of ICF, and for last 10 years I know him as a business coach for various organizations. And I met him long back, 10 years back, in one of the Microsoft conducted workshop for leadership, where I actually attended his uh, lecture, and since then we are connected. He has been my mentor all that 10 years. I've been on and off, have been talking to him. And in fact, when I set it up the mentor card, he was the first person to reach out to that whether something is going to work out like this or not. So thank you, JP sir, for taking out the time and
Thank you, Ashish. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
joining us. And you are a very important person for us in mentor card journey. And we have already lot many guests joining us. And let me start with the topic of today that many of us would like to know, in especially in today's scenario, like which is very crisis, is that what is this emotional intelligence in a simple word and layman language, and everybody can understand.
Okay, Ashish, let me first thank you for inviting me to this webinar and welcome everyone, all the participants. It's a real pleasure and honor to be present here with you all today. Okay, Ashish, to answer your question in very simple terms, you said in layman terms. I'll try to put all my interpretations in very user-friendly terms
Right.
with reference to utilization and use in business. So, in very layman terms, without going into any details, emotional intelligence is using your emotions intelligently. So, when they arise, what is the best way that you can direct your emotions and use them in the best way? In very plain and simple terms.
Right. So I'm saying you want to say that suppose I'm having I'm a leader of the business, and I handle so many people and partners and business connects and everybody, and probably on a particular day when I meet them, they have certain emotions which I try and recognize, and then I use them the best for the organization or balance it out. Something like that. Is that what you want to say?
Yeah, you took a very interesting perspective, which is not only my emotions. I think you put the perspective on reading others' emotions as well.
Yeah, that's what is
So that's a very
important.
yeah.
Yes.
So it's about okay. So if people in this group, draw a 2 by 2 matrix, I invite everyone to draw a 2 by 2 matrix.
Right.
On the left y-axis, right, self, and on the x-axis, right, others, right.
Okay.
Now
Okay.
on the upper left, right, awareness, upper left box, and the lower left box, right, regulation or management. Sorry, I'll have a glass of water.
Sure.
So now, if you got self and others, and you got now 2 by 2 matrix, self awareness, others awareness, self management, others
Others.
management. So it starts with self awareness, top left. Then it goes to bottom left. If I'm aware, then I manage myself well, my own behavior,
Okay.
and I motivate myself better.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So,
And then,
yeah.
just to take a minute, Ashish, similarly, you extend it to the top right. You know about others.
Hmm.
That becomes empathy, what you mentioned. I step into others' shoes and
Okay.
know how they feel better, how they feel. I understand that, so that my response then comes to the bottom right box, which is management of others or management of relationship.
Got it. Got it.
That's how
So,
it goes.
yeah, got it. So, how do we differentiate? Like, if there is a leader, he is having a high emotional intelligence versus someone who is not. What are those top qualities or of those leader who are having a really high emotional intelligence in their day-to-day life? What are those few
Yeah.
skill or top skills and all that?
See, fundamentally, emotional intelligence means it's a lot of debate talk goes on about IQ and EQ,
Hmm.
and people have been saying a lot about EQ, the significance of EQ. Because a lot of people move only with IQ.
That's right.
Now, now what happens is there's a like Western world and India and the Eastern world. Western world is predominantly IQ led, and therefore they are now recognizing the need for EQ. The
Okay.
Eastern
Okay.
world,
Yeah.
for many centuries, had millennials had uh, a high EQ, and we were saying, we brought a concept from the Western world and started using science and IQ a lot. We were very conscious of emotions always. So the game is not whether this is better or that is better. It's not emotions or intelligence. It's this and that. It's a balance of both. So when you see an emotionally intelligent person, you will see a very nice balance of responses, of thought process, and wherever needed, decisions can be fast. Wherever needed to balance it out, they can take time and discuss with others. So that's what we see in an emotionally intelligent leader.
Okay. So yeah, it's clearly visible in terms of their behavior every day, how they conduct themselves actually,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That's it had been always a debate. One more question, people, when I've been talking to some of the entrepreneurs offline, is
Hmm.
that the debate was going on that if you use high UQ in emotional intelligence level rather, that the bonding between team and between team and with you with team also, right? So
Yeah.
both way it becomes stronger. So what are those couple of things or couple of factors which drives this, that the bonding increases? By some example maybe or something quickly we can
Yeah.
share few minutes.
So invariably, it starts with self-awareness
Right.
and self-management in the sense how I respond to situations. Now, when it comes to teams, it's directly related to others, and therefore how much I understand others, and therefore respond and have my relationships with others. So in a team setup, when all the individuals are emotionally intelligent
Hmm.
sufficiently, say,
Hmm.
the the interaction between the team players and with the leader and the leader with the team starts
Yeah.
becoming robust, and directly it has implications in terms of team performance levels
Yeah.
related to related to communication, related to understanding the vision, related to commitment to the team, uh, identity, how much do I have, fundamentally loyalty and commitment to the organization and team. So these are parameters which become visible when team members have a high. and these are directly related to organizational performance.
Right. Right. Correct. I think so. That's a great thing, because I think so. This is what I find is the best benefit of always, because if your team is with you and bonding between them is very strong, definitely you can come out from any situations and you can actually rather grow, right? And the ownership
Yeah.
also within the team.
Let me give you an example.
Yes,
Let me give you an example.
sure.
A person with a high emotional intelligence balance, very often I've been in organizations and I've seen a leader, there are cabins and there's a common eating area. In a conference room, a lot of people eat. Very often you get the leader during lunchtime opening his tiffin box on his table and having his lunch alone. Whereas, high EQ or emotionally intelligent leaders, you know, and it's a I've observed it so many places.
Yes,
Whereas a highly emotional intelligence leader would know how significant is social eating. You
correct.
know, we have concepts of social eating in India so much. Breaking bread comes from Christianity together. So there's spiritual. There are implications
Right.
on team.
That's right. I think so. We have one question from audience, Monty, that how one can use emotional intelligence to cope up with high stress due to job loss, income loss, etc., due to lockdown or any specific situations like what currently we are going through, right? So, what are the techniques and tools this EI person uses or can use? Hello.
So I think the first is, you can hear me,
I can hear you, but in between I got
Ashish. You can hear
it
me.
got broke. Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
So now when we look at the okay, when we look at the emotional intelligence concept, whenever such stress situations happen, we start getting a high flow of hormones, stress hormones, and they play on the what you call the limbic system, and we tend to get high rush of hormones, which you know tend to make us take quick, fast action.
Hmm.
To start with, it's about just understanding the situation first. There is That's where a balance comes in. To sit, take time, and reflect, and then work out the options. Because stress will come. It's about how you manage. Stress is emotion, so it's about handling emotions intelligently.
Right.
So when stress comes, we need to understand that stress. We need to look at it. We need to face it. What a lot of people do is try to identify the stress. What is it for? Where is it coming from? Then you name the stress. Which part of my body is feeling tight? And that helps you ease the stress part and emotions. There are techniques to follow to be able to manage that, like meditation, mindfulness, guided therapy, so that we are able to manage such situations better and then take a emotionally intelligent decision later.
Right. I think so. I think so. SK got his answer. How it helps AI helps into help in entrepreneurs or leaders to take decisions or maybe right decisions.
Yeah. Okay. There are 8 parameters. so to say, of which display emotional intelligence. So when we say self-awareness, the parameters are decisiveness, influence, motivation, empathy, adaptability, conscientiousness, resilience, and self-awareness.
Right.
Now, so these are the 8 parameters. Your specific question is related to decisiveness. One has to reflect and see, if you take a scale, for example, 10-point scale, on the right is high decision, high decisiveness, which means I would want to come to a decision fast. On the
Right.
left, B, I would take time, I would deliberate. Now, there's no right or wrong. The person may want to use his self-awareness first to say, this is my programmed level of decisiveness, right? So when a situation comes, if the person is aware that on a say 10-point scale, again, 1 is not low and 10 is not high. On a scale, if the person is say about 6 or 7, normally, my program style, the person, if he's aware, now should train himself to say, when a decision is needed, my normal style is at say 7. Does this situation demand me to scale it up further or scale it backwards,
Hmm.
depending on the situation? But therefore, it's not that anything is good or bad. But if I know where I operate from, then I can slide the scale to enable better decision making.
Right. Right. So that's the reason. Yeah, it definitely helps because the 8 parameters, as you rightly said, the first one is decisiveness itself, right?
Yeah,
And that's why I kept
absolutely.
that in one of
Yeah.
the. One question generally comes from various entrepreneurs and leaders in the fraternity, which is related to technically related to ownership, but uh, in a word, I would just say that he said, if I don't keep ordering or telling people that they don't do the job, means they always look for instructions until it is given, they don't perform, and if you don't monitor them, they also do not finish what you have told, maybe, right? So people who are growing in the business becomes really difficult for them to cope up with the situation, whether to focus on growth or to focus on a people or to focus on a job which is pending. How this situation uh, can be addressed if this leader or its people are having with high EI actually.
Very practical point, Ashish, and I've uh, looked at organizations as an example. The first thing you have to take into account is a 2 or 3 step process. The
Hmm.
first thing you have to look at is evaluate the competence and caliber and value system of people. So again, I recommend there's a famous 9 grade matrix, the GE 9 grade matrix. So if you have performance on one side and values on the other side, so top right is high performance, high values. Bottom left is low performance, low values, and in the middle. Now, if you do a bell curve across this diagonally, you should have, you know, there will always be a middle 50-60%, which is important.
Right.
And there'll be a bottom 10%, and there'll be a top, say, 20-30%. Now, in a high growth business, first check is my composition of the team having at least 30% plus high end and less than 10 at the bottom end? That's the first thing. Because if you have 30 at the bottom, then there's no way it'll drag you down. There's no way you'll grow. That's the first check. It's manpower inventory check. Now, if you're high growth, 30 to 40% should be at the top, otherwise you won't grow. And the bottom of the bell curve should not be more than 10, and that could be churned. Now, that's a totally different ball game altogether. How to churn, there are right ways to do it.
Yeah.
Now comes the second point. If your manpower inventory is right, then there's a concept called situational leadership,
Right.
in which, now if it's IT, for example, you have new projects, different projects. Situational leadership says I use different styles for different people at different times.
Yes.
So a highly skilled person for a particular role may not. It's not that a person is competent for everything. So a highly skilled person, a highly experienced person may not be competent for a particular project. So for each project, one needs to have, first of all, an open discussion, setting goals, and then saying, it's a very transparent discussion to say, okay, you have a good experience, you have good skills. For this project, let's agree what is your development level, high, medium, low. Because if it's for that project, if that person has a low development level, you
Yeah.
will need to do a directive ordering kind of style.
Correct.
And therefore, you should agree with the person to say, okay, my frequency of touch base with you will be, say, regularly, daily. And if a person is adept on that project, you could actually, just support, give advice, or just delegate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a situational leadership model which S1 D1 D1 S2 Bala, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's actually, as its name says, that you will have a leadership based on the situation, right? The person is not of your caliber or not of that level of maturity. You cannot give him that kind of a job, obviously.
I'm reminded of another study that was done by Hayes Group.
Hmm.
This is a dated study, but it's a very significant and relevant study. It stuck with me. 50 Indian CEOs were surveyed,
Hmm.
and successful Indian CEOs. So the relevance is because they're successful and they're Indian. So it's a relevant context. It's not borrowed from the West.
Yeah.
They say when an entrepreneur starts, he does freestyling. Ashish, for example, is a is a think you're involved with everything, right? But if you have to grow at that stage, you will have to identify specialists,
Yes.
because then what was successful today of personal brilliance will drag you down later. So at
Absolutely.
that point, directive goes down, and you get the team as winds under your wing
Correct.
and take the flight.
Correct.
For that, the first 2 points have to be relevant. A
Absolutely.
little long answer for your question.
Yeah, no, but it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, but
It
these are
absolutely.
not simple. These are not simple issues or challenges or goals to work on. So therefore, whatever we can cover in this short time. But these are, we're just touching the surface.
Yeah, for the EI, it's just touching the surface. In fact, I was thinking to have one session planned for you for the bigger audience, maybe a webinar kind of a show, where we
Yeah, sure.
talk a little more about and we identify the audience, and based on that, we see EI is a
In
big
fact,
subject.
there was for IT, for example. I was in a group meeting with NASCOM, and Ashish also uh, bang on. This question came up from the attendees, startup in IT.
Okay. Hmm. Okay, great. So, as you know, because I worked with you, and I've learned from you a lot when I was dealing with a lot of Microsoft's businesses. And I remember the workshop when I met you first. It was across the India partners who were leading the business of India and Asia Pacific, and it was on a next level of CEO करके था उसका topic. And there what we interacted, right? Because that was session attended by
Yes.
me. I was leading a business for more than crores, 100 crores plus. So it was a great experience. Since then, we have been working together in any way. So in terms of one very relevant question for today's scenario, maybe we can answer in maybe 1.5, 2 minutes, because we have less time and we have one more question after that. Is that person
Okay.
with
Sure.
high emotional intelligence and without, how this person will handle COVID-19, post-COVID-19 era, which is currently going on and is going to continue for some more time, and its
Yeah.
impact on its personal and professional life. So, what will be the
Yeah.
difference of EI person?
So, if we go very technically using AI as a model, we need to look at those 8 parameters and try to put myself there and say
Yes,
which is my natural. If we want, I can quickly repeat these: decisiveness, influence, motivation, empathy, adaptability, uh, conscientiousness, resilience, and self-awareness. I would, invite everyone to just rate their normal response on these parameters. And now there may be time to look at each of these scales and the need to, for example, adaptability. If you are at 5 or 4 on the left side, you may want to slide it up to
yeah,
increase adaptability. So, if your resilience is low, you may want to slide it up. So I would invite everyone to look at their own parameters first, because if you're aware, then you will tend to slide the scales in the right way.
correct. I think so. That's the best way of doing it. And one last question is that whatever happens, the entrepreneur always asks about that: how do I continue to my business and how do I grow my business? So post COVID era, this question have been coming, that how do I make sure that I get more customers, or maybe I get customers more from my competitors than me, right? Should I go ahead and offer discounting, or should I go ahead and what should I do as an entrepreneur to have more customers post COVID?
See, discounting, because affordability will be an issue, uh, is 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 one of the ways to make people comfortable. Because otherwise, it'll be uncontrolled price increase. However,
Right.
whatever message you pass, in this whole outcome, just remember that on the other side of it, your brand is still there. So while revenues and value worth is there, and you need to build it up and protect, but in this, if you have to be very careful that your brand doesn't get diluted with any opportunistic or mercenary message.
Hmm.
Because if that gets diluted, like they say, if wealth is lost, nothing is lost. If health is lost, something is lost. If character or brand is lost, then could be a bigger damage.
Correct. So I think so we have to be take care of this brand which we
Messaging.
have for a period of time, the messaging what we are communicating. Even if you are bringing down the discount, you should have a valid reason for that,
Yeah,
which is
there was one person who called me and he said, how can I get, what can I do? Investors are asking me, what can you do to get uh, people from your competitors?
okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so so we need to be careful.
Yes, yes, yes. So I think so. We are done with our session, and I just wanted to keep it strictly for 30 minutes so that people can pay attention to this. Very insightful about EI. Many people have been watching, and many people will watch later, because this is going to be continue to be on the Facebook, and as well as guys, we are going to share this recording on the LinkedIn and our website, so will be more viewership. It was a very insightful session, and I think so, JP sir, this calls for a definitely a cause that we should have one good webinar on AI, and maybe I think so. We should plan some 3-4 webinar series on AI, which should address, we should plan that content, and then we take it forward. So I
Sure,
promise you
Ashish.
guys that we will come back for this webinar for sure, very soon. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and honor.
Thank you.